I'm going to be demonstrating a lot of features of Excel in this module, including ones that you're not going to necessarily use on the assignment for this module or the next module. But I want to show you a lot of the kinds of things that Excel can do. And I don't expect you to become an Excel expert. I just expect you to understand what Excel can do and then kind of pique your curiosity so that you can go figure out how to make it do some things, when you're presented with problems. It's a great problem solving tool. So what I've done is I've created an Excel file with a number of worksheets. Each of the tabs in an Excel file are called worksheets. And so there's 10 or 12 worksheets in this file. I will post the file as you see it here on D2L. I will then post the file to D2L when I'm finished doing the screencast that I'm going to record. And then you can see everything that I did, and you can follow through and do this on your own as well. And I highly recommend it. Now, if you have some Excel experience, you'll probably see some things here that you already know how to do. So feel free to skip through these things. Some of the things might be a little confusing, so you can stop and pause and rewind. But make use of this however you want to make use of it. I offer this to you because I think Excel is this important, and I want to take the time to do things that you find valuable. So next week I'm going to try to focus on pivot tables and some more advanced Excel topics because that's what the assignment is about. But I also want to hear from you if there's things that I didn't cover that you want to know. Hey, how do I do this in Excel? Or I have this problem at work and I'd like to know how to solve it in Excel. Is there an easy way? Another thing I should tell you is that often in Excel there are 2 or 3 or 4 different ways to do the same thing. So I will be showing you the way that I do things and work most comfortably, and I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts and not as much, I don't use the mouse as much, so you'll notice that. The screencast will show you the keyboard shortcuts that I'm using. So if I, for example, want to highlight this column, I will do Control Spacebar, and that will show up at the bottom of your screen so that you can see that I did Control Spacebar. I am also not recording my video on here, which I hope isn't too disappointing to you, because I want to keep the file size as small as possible. I've made the resolution larger so that we can fit more on the screen, and the file size can get very large if I then also include my video up in the corner. So just imagine with your mind's eye how I'm looking and sitting up there in the corner as I usually am, and you'll be just fine. So I want to start out by, before I even look in this worksheet that I've created, I want to highlight some of the features of Excel and tell you what some of these things are called so that you're not confused when I'm referring to something. So each of these tabs is called a worksheet. The collection of the worksheets in a file is called a workbook. So if you hear the term Excel workbook, that means a collection of worksheets. This particular workbook is called 12-Excel Lab 1.xlsx. The file extension starting with Office 2007 is 4 characters, so it's .xlsx for a normal Excel file now, where it used to be .xls. If it's .xlsm, it means that the file has the capability of having macros in it, which we can get into next week if people request that. Macros are very powerful ways you can record macros, in fact, of things that you do repetitively so that you don't need to always do the same things. You can just run the macro and let Excel do whatever it is you want it to do. And you can go even further and program in Visual Basic and really do some fancy things in Excel. This area at the top of your screen is called the ribbon. So the ribbon was introduced in Office 2007, and a lot of people hate it. I love it, as a matter of fact. So whereas you used to have to go into the File menu or the Edit menu or the View menu to see the commands, most of the popular commands are right on one of these ribbons, and then you can just click on the button as you need to. So if you're using Office 2007, you don't have a File menu, you have an Office button, it's called, up here in the top left, but it does a lot of the same things. So in the File menu or in the Office button, the things that I use the most are the Print area, the recent file area, which will show you all of your recent files that you've used so that you can open them really quickly. You can even pin files, so I'll pin this file up here, and then it will always stay at the top so that I can always open this file by right at the top. Even if I haven't opened it in 3 months, it'll still be at the top. And you can do the same thing with folders. If you use folders frequently, you can pin those folders and they'll stay there. The print area, this is called the backstage view, and so here you can see a print preview of what you would see if you actually sent this to a printer. You can choose your printer. Do I want to print just the active sheets? Do I only want to print page 2? All of that kind of stuff. You can change to portrait, things like that. That works similarly in Word and PowerPoint and other Microsoft applications as well. The home ribbon is where you start by default, and that has a lot of the most commonly used functions. But before I talk about the home ribbon, I want to talk about this area at the top of my screen. This is called the Quick Access Toolbar. And the Quick Access Toolbar is where you can put your favorite buttons so that they're always there. No matter what ribbon you're on, that Quick Access Toolbar stays how it is at the top of the screen. And so I've got a Recent Files button up there, so it will always bring me to the recent files rather than going to File and then Recent. I can click it once. I've got Save and Save As. I have Undo, although I typically use Control Z for undo and Control Y for redo. This is Paste Values, so that if I don't want to paste the formulas for something, I can just paste the values. I've got Sort buttons. I've got Print Preview. This is filtering, which we'll talk about later on. This camera thing is kind of cool. I can show you that. That's where you can actually turn your whatever you want into a picture. And so I can take a picture, for example, of this selection here, and I'll put the picture over here. And I can't do anything in that picture. I mean, it really is just a picture, and I could edit it just like I can any other picture. Do these fancy things with the picture and put frames around it. I can paste it into Word as a picture. But the really cool thing about the picture is that it actually will change, so that if I change something in here, I change that to July 3rd, you see that that date changed to July 3rd in my picture. So it's kind of an interactive picture, if you will. But that can be a handy tool, and that's not available anywhere on any of the ribbons, so that's why I have it up here. This Sum is on a couple ribbons. It's on your Home ribbon, and it's also, I believe, on your Formulas ribbon. But I keep it up there because I use it so often. Freeze Panes is another one that I use, which I'll show you in a bit. And then this Email button. One thing you may not realize is that in the Save and Send area under File, you can send as an attachment, which sends this Excel file as an email attachment, but you can also send it as a PDF attachment. Office 2010 has a built-in PDF converter. If you have Office 2007, you probably have a PDF converter. It was an add-on for Office 2007, and you can natively create PDFs without any other software at all. Here's where you can do it if you don't want to attach it to an email, or you can just do File Save As and change it to PDF. So let me show you how we get things up on this ribbon up here. There's a little arrow at the end of the ribbon, and that can do a couple things. First of all, you can turn on these ones that are kind of the most popular items just by clicking the checkbox next to them. So a number of the items I have up there came from there. Another way that you can do it is, let's say I want to add boldface to my Quick Access Toolbar. I can just right-click on this B and say Add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, and it'll put it up there. And then I can right-click and say Remove it from the Quick Access Toolbar. The other way is to go down here to where it says More Commands, and then I can choose from popular commands, or I can choose commands that are not on any ribbon, or I can choose from which tab the commands come, or I can just say show me all the commands. And so here's all the commands that you can add to your Excel Quick Access Toolbar. And again, some of these aren't in any tab on the ribbon at all. And so here you see all of the paste items that are available for me to add. And that's where I added my paste values because I use it so frequently. And here's paste values with number formatting. You just click Add and it puts it over there. And then you can move it up if you want it to be by your other paste. If you want to remove it, you just click remove and it takes it out, that kind of thing. So cool way to handle the items that you use the most. Now some people like to click this and do show below the ribbon, and then it puts their quick access items down here. I like it above the ribbon, but below the ribbon, if you're using your mouse, you don't have to go as far, so I guess that's a little bit more efficient. Some other things about the ribbon. A lot of these groupings, like this is the font group on the home ribbon, a lot of these groupings have a little arrow down in the corner, and what that allows you to do is you can click on that arrow, and instead of setting each one of these things individually, you get kind of the old way of doing things where you can set your borders and your alignment and all of this stuff that you know, your fill colors and everything how you could in Office 2003 and earlier. It's still there. You just click that little, I don't even know what you call it, in the lower right hand corner of any of these things, and it brings up the dialog box like you used to see in earlier versions of Office. So a lot of people don't realize that. The Insert tab is useful for inserting pictures or charts. Maybe we'll get into some charts next week. Handy way to display data graphically. The Page Layout tab is kind of neat. This is where you'll set the things like the landscape and the margins and all that kinds of thing, and I'll talk about that more in the next screencast. Formulas, you can write formulas here, although I tend to just write them right in the cells, as you'll see. But you can, if you want an easy way to make a formula, is you can do insert function, and it'll walk you right through, you know, and tell you step by step what goes into for each argument of that function. So you feel free to use that if you want to. I probably won't when I demonstrate writing formulas. The data menu is where we'll look at filtering. It's also where you can pull in data from other sources like SQL databases or Access databases, things like that. We looked before at the text to columns feature earlier. The review tab is where this is what I use when I grade your homework, is I can put comments in and say you know, that this number's too high, whatever, and it puts a little sticky note there, and then you can, you know, turn the comments off so that you only see them when you hover over it or what have you. So I use that a lot. You can password protect your sheet, or you can even do it without a password, so that people can't change your formulas or your formats or things like that. You can share your workbook so that more than one person can be in an Excel file at a time. A lot of people think only one person can be in an Excel file at a time, but this has actually been around since Office 1997, or Office 97, I guess it was called. So you can do that. You can get into trouble if you both try to edit the same cell, but I've used this pretty successfully. We actually upgraded. I remember upgrading at work from Office 95 to Office 97 just for this feature. The view menu, we'll look at different views. There's also some views down here at the bottom of the screen so that you can look at page break preview and page layout view just like you can up here. And the zooming is also down here at the bottom of the screen. So I don't tend to do much on the view menu. The freeze panes is helpful, and I'll look at that in the next screencast, although I have that on my quick access toolbar. The developer tab you probably don't have turned on. You need to do that in the options, but this is where you can build forms and do some things with Visual Basic and macros more in depth than you can over here on the view menu. This is where you can record macros, but if you want to actually edit them and things, you do that here on the developer tab. And then you may have an add-ins tab. I have one because I have the Avery label wizard installed on my computer. Also, if you have Adobe Acrobat, for example, the full version where you can create PDFs, you might have that an option here to send it to a PDF file, so you'd have that add-ins tab. But those are kind of the standard items that you'll see at the top of your screen. At the bottom of your screen, you will see the names of the worksheets, which we looked at before. It will also tell you things like if macros are running, if your worksheet needs to be calculated. So if you have your calculations turned off, what you might want to do if you have a really big worksheet, but generally I leave them on, and the place that you do that is on the formulas menu. Under here you can change that to manual, and then it won't calculate every time you change a number, which if you've got a really complicated worksheet, you might want to turn it to manual because that can speed things up. But then often you'll be scratching your head wondering, hey, why isn't my stuff calculating correctly? So you'll have to remember that, hey, I turned those off. It'll say calculate down here. Another thing at the bottom of your screen, which you may not realize, is if you select a bunch of numbers, it will tell you the sum of those numbers, how many numbers you have, the average of them. So sometimes you just want to know, hey, what do all these numbers here add up to? But you don't want to write a formula for that because you don't want the formula sticking around. You don't need to write a formula. You can just select the numbers you want, and even if they're not adjacent to each other, you can hold down the control button and pick non-adjacent cells. Or if you want to select a range, you can select one cell and hold down the shift button and then click as a way using your mouse. And it'll always show you the sum down here, which is kind of handy. That does that by default. You can right click and turn on some other things like the min and the max if you want to, but it'll show the sum and the count and the average by default. So some neat things that you can do using Excel straight out of the box. And then of course you can customize, as I mentioned up here, with your quick access toolbar. So hopefully this little backgrounder gives you some familiarity with the application. I don't think there's anything better than actually using it though, and so I invite you to follow along with the rest of the screencasts as I demonstrate some things. Grab this file from D2L and then follow along and do these things yourself, especially things that are new to you.